Indra Otsutsuki wasn't just the ancestor of the Uchiha. He was the older son of the Sage of Six Paths himself, the legendary figure who first brought chakra to the world. When the sage decided to pass down his teachings and choose a successor, everyone expected it would go to Indra. He was the eldest, the most naturally gifted, and he had incredible raw power that seemed to flow through him without effort. But the sage chose his younger son Azura instead. That rejection didn't just hurt Indra's feelings or bruise his ego. Indra's chakra and spiritual energy manifested as a pattern of intense emotion in his descendants, known as the curse of hatred. Obsessive grief that turns to vengeance and drives Sharingan growth through the generations. The curse manifested as the Sharingan. These weren't normal eyes that you were born with. They were eyes that awakened through emotional trauma and grew stronger through loss and pain. Think of it like a twisted reward system. The more you suffered, the more powerful you became. But here's what makes this curse so cruel. It feeds on the very thing it's supposed to protect. The more an Uchiha cares about their family and friends, the more they suffer when they lose someone. And the more they suffer, the more powerful their eyes become. The effect often made love and loss the triggers for power, a dangerous feedback loop. You want to protect the people you care about, so you get stronger, but getting stronger requires losing the people you're trying to protect. What that means is every Uchiha faces the same impossible choice. Stay weak and watch your loved ones die, or become strong enough to protect them by experiencing trauma that changes who you are forever. The Sharingan doesn't just copy techniques or cast illusions. The eyes deepen and unlock reality-altering jutsu through emotional trauma. Techniques like Izanagi that can literally rewrite what happened in battle. But there's a pathological cycle. Mangekyo power leads to sight loss, which creates the need for a sibling's eyes to create an eternal Mangekyo. The curse created a clan that was simultaneously the most loyal and the most dangerous in the ninja world. They would die for their family without hesitation. But that same fierce loyalty made them willing to destroy anyone who threatened what they loved. At its core, the Sharingan turned love into a weapon. Indra's rejection hardwired trauma directly into Uchiha DNA. Their greatest power became dependent on their greatest pain. Every time an Uchiha awakened their Sharingan, they were reliving that original moment of betrayal and abandonment. The curse made sure they would never forget what it felt like to be passed over, to have their strength dismissed, to watch someone else get what they deserved. That cursed bloodline would drive them to seek power through conflict, and it wouldn't take long before they found the perfect enemy to test their growing abilities against. For centuries, two names struck fear into anyone caught between them: Uchiha and Senju. But this wasn't just clan rivalry. This was a war that literally shaped the ninja world and created the foundation for everything that came after. The Uchiha mastered fire release and illusion techniques that could burn entire forests or trap armies in nightmares. Meanwhile, the Senju dominated with earth release and raw chakra reserves that let them reshape landscapes and outlast any opponent. They were perfectly matched opposites, like fire and water constantly trying to consume each other. Every battle between them escalated the conflict. Each clan had to develop deadlier techniques just to survive the next encounter. The Uchiha would create a new fire technique, so the Senju would counter with stronger earth defenses. The Senju would develop better healing abilities, so the Uchiha would craft more powerful illusions to bypass physical defenses entirely. The constant escalation produced the Mangekyo Sharingan, techniques like Izanagi that could erase a death from the books in battle. Imagine being able to turn your death into an illusion while making your attacks completely real. That's the kind of power this war created. Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju became the ultimate symbols of this conflict. These two had been childhood friends who played by the river and dreamed of peace. But when they grew up and took control of their clans, they became bitter enemies locked in personal battles that went beyond clan loyalty. Their fights were so intense they created permanent landmarks, like the Valley of the End. When Madara and Hashirama clashed, the sheer force of their techniques would split mountains and redirect rivers. Here's what's crazy though. Despite all the hatred and bloodshed, both clans were getting exhausted from endless war. They were losing too many people, spending too many resources, and watching their children grow up knowing nothing but violence. The curse that drove them to fight was slowly destroying them from within. The breakthrough came when Hashirama offered something unprecedented. Instead of another battle or temporary truce, he proposed a permanent solution. A shared village where children wouldn't have to fight and both clans could live in peace. Madara initially rejected this idea completely. After decades of warfare and personal betrayal, the thought of trusting the Senju seemed impossible. But he eventually agreed when he realized his own clan was tired of war and genuinely wanted peace more than they wanted victory. The friendship led to attempted peace, but Madara later left the village in isolation, returned with the eternal Mangekyo using his brother Izuna's eyes, and fought Hashirama one final time at the Valley of the End. This decision to end their eternal conflict would create the Hidden Leaf Village and change the ninja world forever. Instead of scattered clans fighting endlessly, they would build something new, a system where different groups could work together while keeping their unique strengths. But creating a village was one thing. Making sure every founding clan felt truly equal in this new system would prove to be an entirely different challenge. When Konoha was founded, the Uchiha weren't just residents, they were co-founders with equal claim to leadership. So why did everything go wrong? Hashirama became the first Hokage, but the village council and citizens chose him over Madara in what was supposed to be a fair selection. On paper, this looked democratic and reasonable. The people had spoken, and they preferred Hashirama's vision of cooperation over Madara's more aggressive approach to village defense. But Madara saw this as proof that the Senju would always be favored, and that the Uchiha would never truly be equals in this new system. Think about it from his perspective. He had just ended centuries of war, agreed to trust his former enemies, and helped build something completely new. Then the first major decision excluded him entirely. The village tried to show good faith by giving the Uchiha control of the military police force. This was positioned as an elite assignment that utilized their Sharingan perfectly. Who better to investigate crimes and maintain order than people who could see through any deception and copy any technique used against them? But this decision came from Tobirama Senju, who designed the police role specifically to use Uchiha strengths while keeping them away from central government control. On paper, this was an honor. The police force was responsible for village security, criminal investigations, and maintaining order among all the different clans now living together. The Uchiha were being trusted with the safety of everyone in Konoha, including their former enemies. But Madara realized this was actually political isolation, disguised as respect. They were being given security jobs to keep them away from real governance. It's like being told you're too valuable as a guard to waste time on boring administrative meetings. You get respect and important work, but you lose influence over the decisions that actually matter. The police force role meant the Uchiha would always be enforcers rather than policymakers. They could arrest people who broke the rules, but they couldn't help decide what those rules should be. They could protect the village's interests, but they couldn't define what those interests were. When Madara tried to rally his clan to leave Konoha, most Uchiha refused because they genuinely wanted the peace the village offered. After generations of constant warfare, they were exhausted and ready to try something different. The idea of their children growing up without having to fight and kill was worth more than political power. Feeling betrayed by both the village and his own clan, Madara left alone. But not before using his dead brother Izuna's eyes to gain the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. This wasn't just about power. It was about preparing for a conflict he now saw as inevitable. That honor, the police role, would be the exact policy that seeds the Uchiha's later Kutok. The Uchiha would spend decades feeling valued but never truly included, creating exactly the kind of distrust and bitterness that would poison relations between the clan and village leadership for generations to come. For decades after Madara left, the Uchiha served loyally as Konoha's police force. So what turned the village's protectors into suspected traitors? Everything changed the night the Ninetales attacked Konoha. This massive fox demon nearly destroyed the entire village in one night, crushing buildings and killing hundreds of people before it could be stopped. The attack was devastating, but what came next was even worse for the Uchiha clan. Someone with a Sharingan was controlling the Ninetales during that attack. Since Madara was the only known Uchiha who had ever demonstrated that kind of power, suspicion immediately fell on the entire clan. It didn't matter that most Uchiha were fighting to defend the village alongside everyone else. The fact that their bloodline could theoretically control tailed beasts made them all potential suspects. The village leadership, especially Danzo, began treating every Uchiha as a potential threat rather than a protector. Danzo and the council escalated active monitoring and intelligence measures on the Uchiha. The clan compound was relocated to the outskirts of the village, officially for security reasons during reconstruction. But functionally, this made the Uchiha easier to monitor and isolated them from daily village life. Uchiha were gradually excluded from important village decisions, despite their police force status and years of loyal service. They still had their jobs and their responsibilities, but they lost their voice in meetings that determined village policy. They could enforce the rules but couldn't help shape what those rules should be. The clan's resentment grew as they realized they were being punished for crimes they didn't commit, by a village they had helped create. Every surveillance measure felt like an accusation. Every exclusion from decision-making felt like proof they were no longer trusted partners, but suspected enemies. Fugaku Uchiha, the clan leader, tried to maintain peace while secretly planning what many saw as their only option: a coup d'état. He wanted to preserve the village they had helped build, but he also couldn't ignore his clan's growing frustration and isolation. The village's surveillance network created a cycle of distrust that fed on itself. The more the village watched them, the more suspicious the Uchiha became. The more suspicious they became, the more the village felt justified in watching them. At its core, both sides were now preparing for conflict, convinced the other was planning to strike first. The Uchiha saw surveillance as proof of future persecution. The village saw Uchiha secrecy as proof of future betrayal. The loyal protectors had become the primary threat, not through any action they took, but through fear of what they might do. This powder keg needed only one spark to explode into open conflict. That spark would come from the most unexpected source, the one person everyone thought could prevent the disaster entirely. Itachi Uchiha was supposed to be the bridge between his clan and village. Instead, he became the weapon that would destroy everything he loved. At just 13 years old, Itachi was already an Anbu captain and the most talented Uchiha of his generation, trusted by both his clan and village leadership. This wasn't normal for someone so young. The Anbu were elite operatives who handled the most dangerous missions, and being a captain meant other seasoned warriors followed his orders. His early success placed him in a unique position, where both sides saw him as their future. When village spies discovered the Uchiha were seriously planning a coup, they faced a nightmare scenario: civil war that could destroy Konoha from within. The intelligence was clear. The Uchiha had set a date, assigned roles, and were actively preparing to overthrow the village government. This wasn't just angry talk anymore. It was a real threat that could tear apart everything the village had built. Danzo and the village leadership approached Itachi with an ultimatum: become a double agent and help prevent the coup, or watch the village destroy his entire clan. But they offered one crucial guarantee. If Itachi cooperated, they would spare his little brother Sasuke's life. Think of it like being told to spy on your own family. Or else watch them all get arrested, except the consequences weren't prison, they were complete annihilation. Itachi became a double agent, feeding Konoha intelligence while outwardly remaining loyal to the clan. The moral weight of betraying his own family while pretending to support them created an impossible psychological burden. He had to smile and train with clan members while knowing he was gathering evidence for their potential execution. Every family dinner became an intelligence-gathering mission. Shisui Uchiha, Itachi's best friend and fellow double agent, tried to use his Mangekyo Sharingan ability called Kotoa Matsukami to peacefully stop the coup through mind control. His technique could have changed the clan leaders' minds without violence, creating a solution where nobody had to die. This was their one chance to resolve everything without bloodshed. But Danzo stole Shisui's eye and drove him to suicide, eliminating the peaceful solution and leaving Itachi completely alone. Danzo feared that Shisui might use his power on village leadership instead of the Uchiha, so he took the eye for himself. Shisui, realizing what this meant for his friend, entrusted his remaining eye to Itachi before ending his own life. The village forced Itachi to choose between saving the village by destroying his family or saving his family and watching civil war tear apart everything he believed in. There was no middle ground, no compromise, no way to protect both sides. Either the coup succeeded and Konoha fell into chaos, or the coup failed and the Uchiha faced extinction. With Shisui dead and the coup date approaching, Itachi made his final decision. He would stop the coup permanently, but the method would require him to sacrifice everything he held dear. The operation began that night, with surgical precision and devastating efficiency. Itachi made a deal with village leadership that would haunt him forever. He agreed to wipe out the Uchiha in exchange for a guarantee that Sasuke would be spared and protected, with Danzo orchestrating the arrangement and the third Hokage's silent approval. This wasn't just about sparing one child. It was about ensuring the Uchiha bloodline wouldn't completely disappear from the world. On the night of the massacre, Itachi had help from a masked figure claiming Madara's name. Years later, we learn he was Obito operating as Madara/Tobi. Two Sharingan users working together could cover the entire compound in a fraction of the time it would take one person alone. The masked man handled the outer sections while Itachi focused on the main family areas. Itachi moved through the Uchiha compound systematically, using his Mangekyo Sharingan to kill quickly and painlessly when possible. He wasn't acting out of rage or hatred. He was completing a mission with surgical precision. Every step was calculated to minimize suffering while achieving the objective that would prevent civil war. The most heartbreaking moment came when he faced his own parents. They didn't resist and told him they understood why he had to make this choice. They knew about the coup plans and realized their son was caught between impossible options. Instead of fighting back or trying to escape, they accepted their fate and told Itachi they were proud of his decision to protect the village. But Itachi's plan had a crucial psychological component. He had to make Sasuke hate him completely to protect him from village suspicion. If Sasuke grieved like a normal brother, people might wonder why Itachi spared him. If Sasuke showed any understanding or forgiveness, village leaders might see him as a future threat who shared his brother's supposed motivations. Itachi used his Mangekyo Genjutsu techniques to force Sasuke to witness the massacre repeatedly, intentionally creating the hatred that would protect him from suspicion and push him toward strength. Think of it like being forced to relive your worst nightmare on repeat, except the nightmare was real and involved everyone you loved. This psychological torture was designed to create trauma so severe it would overshadow any other feelings. He told Sasuke that he killed everyone to test his power and that Sasuke was too weak to matter. All lies designed to create hatred instead of grief. Every cruel word was calculated to make Sasuke focus on revenge, rather than questioning why his brother would do such a thing. Hatred would make him strong, but more importantly, it would make him predictable and controllable. Itachi publicly took blame and later joined Akatsuki as cover, while the full truth about Konoha's role remained buried. When dawn broke, the most powerful clan in Konoha history was gone, leaving only two survivors with completely different versions of what happened. The village was safe from civil war, but the official story they told would create an entirely different kind of disaster. Konoha's official story painted Itachi as a power-hungry traitor who snapped under pressure, making him one of the most wanted criminals in ninja history. The narrative was simple and believable: a young prodigy corrupted by his own abilities, who turned against everything he once stood for. This version made Itachi a cautionary tale about unchecked ambition and the dangers of giving too much power to someone so young. The third Hokage and some leadership knew the truth but kept it secret to avoid political collapse. While publicly presenting Itachi as a rogue killer, Danzo continued to view Sasuke as a potential threat and monitored him constantly, all while keeping Shisui's stolen eye for his own agenda. Sasuke grew up believing this lie, dedicating his entire life to getting strong enough to kill his brother and avenge his family. Every training session, every mission, every choice he made was filtered through this single goal. The cover-up didn't just hide the truth. It weaponized Sasuke's grief and turned it into pure hatred, that consumed everything else in his life. Sasuke's trauma and obsession with revenge made him increasingly isolated from his teammates and willing to make dangerous choices for power. He couldn't form normal relationships because everything was secondary to his mission. Friends became obstacles, bonds became weaknesses. The psychological programming Itachi had installed was working exactly as intended. The cover-up funneled Sasuke directly toward Orochimaru, one of the most dangerous criminals alive, because Orochimaru promised the power needed to kill Itachi. Think of it like making a deal with the devil. Sasuke was so focused on revenge that he was willing to sacrifice his humanity to achieve it. Orochimaru's experiments and training methods were horrific, but they offered the kind of rapid power growth that normal training couldn't match. Meanwhile, Itachi joined the Akatsuki organization as a spy, continuing to protect the village while maintaining his cover as a rogue ninja. He had to commit crimes and work alongside dangerous criminals, all while secretly feeding information back to Konoha. Every mission deepened his cover, but also added to his reputation as a villain. The psychological damage to Sasuke was exactly what Itachi intended. Hatred made him strong, but it also made him willing to destroy himself for revenge. The cover-up created a feedback loop where Sasuke's pain drove him to seek more power, which required more sacrifice, which created more pain. When Sasuke finally fought and killed Itachi years later, he thought he had achieved his life's purpose and could finally find peace. The moment his brother died, Sasuke expected to feel satisfaction or closure. Instead, he felt empty. Itachi had structured his actions to protect Sasuke and left contingency measures like Shisui's eye embedded as a countermeasure. But the actual unmasking of the village's role came later. Via Obito and the wartime reanimation of Itachi, the cover-up had turned Sasuke into a revenge-driven weapon. But learning the truth would force him to confront an even bigger question. What do you do when everything you thought you knew about your purpose was wrong? While Sasuke worked to rebuild the Uchiha legacy without repeating its mistakes, his daughter Sarada represents everything the clan could become. Powerful but not consumed by hatred. Ambitious but not isolated from others. Sarada is growing up in a world where the Uchiha name carries a different weight than before. While the clan is no longer universally treated as an automatic threat, echoes of the past, restricted records, Orochimaru's experiments, and the political memory of the massacre still color how people react. But instead of being defined by suspicion, Sarada gets judged by her actions and character. Growing up with an absent father on secret missions, Sarada initially struggled with her identity and wondered if she was really an Uchiha. Sasuke was constantly away protecting the village from threats that could return at any moment. This left Sarada questioning whether she belonged to this legendary clan or if she was just pretending to be something she wasn't. Her mother Sakura provided the support and guidance that helped her navigate these challenges. While Sasuke was away, Sakura made sure Sarada understood that strength comes from protecting people you care about, not from proving your superiority over them. This foundation of love and compassion shaped how Sarada would view her own power. Unlike previous generations, Sarada awakened her Sharingan not through trauma, but through the joy and excitement of potentially reuniting with her father. This positive awakening in the Ridge Tower scene differs sharply from prior Uchiha awakenings that arose from trauma and loss. Think of it like the difference between learning to drive because you're fleeing danger versus learning because you want to visit friends. The motivation completely changes what the skill means to you. This positive awakening broke a cycle that had defined the Uchiha for generations. Where Sasuke awakened his Sharingan through watching his family die, and Itachi awakened his through the horrors of war, Sarada awakened hers through hope and connection. Her eyes became a symbol of reunion rather than loss. Her dream isn't revenge or proving Uchiha superiority. She wants to become Hokage and protect everyone in the village equally. This represents a complete shift in Uchiha ambition. Previous generations sought power to protect their clan specifically, or to gain recognition for their strength. Sarada wants power to serve everyone. When she trains with her father, Sasuke teaches her about teamwork and the importance of protecting those she cares about. These lessons reinforce her natural inclination toward building connections, rather than standing apart from others. She learns to see her abilities as tools for helping others, rather than weapons for dominating them. Her interactions with peers like Boruto highlight her commitment to friendship and cooperation. She supports her teammates and works together to achieve shared goals, showing that Uchiha power can strengthen communities instead of threatening them. Sarada represents the clan's evolution beyond the curse of hatred, channeling Uchiha power toward protection rather than revenge. Through her, we see that breaking generational cycles is possible, and that the choice between connection and isolation can reshape an entire bloodline's destiny. The Uchiha clan story is ultimately about the choice between love and hatred, and how that choice shapes not just individuals, but entire generations. If you found this timeline useful, hyper-subscribe for more condensed lore compilations. Which Uchiha choice changed the shinobi world the most? Madara's rebellion, Itachi's sacrifice, or Sasuke's redemption? Tell us below.